What's up, Indubians? Just want to take a quick moment here just to say that this is a two-part review, or rather we do two films, and it just kind of flows all together, except you're only going to hear the first part for The Harder They Fall. We also reviewed Dune, but you can hear that review on the Love Blurs podcast, or you can go over to the Patreon, where you could just hear both in one, clip. The reason why the second part is on the Dune, or rather the Love Blurs podcast, is because my wife Ashley joins in and the three of us talk about Dune. So again, go over to the Love Blurs podcast to hear that, or go to the Patreon to hear both The Harder They Fall and Dune together for $1. It's not so bad, is it? Right? No. Without further ado, let's just get on with the show.
Indu podcast.
Good evening, Indubians. Yeah, just kind of ran into it there. I'm T. Sterling Watson.
And I'm Courtney.
Yes, we are having a special, almost impromptu episode of the Indu podcast where we're going to discuss two films that have really kind of just taken us away this last quarter, I suppose, or last trimester. No, that's cool. The last chunk of 2021, and the first film we're going to discuss is The Harder They Fall, which I know I had told you about, Courtney, when the trailer first dropped. I'm like, oh my god, we have to see this, and it basically lived up, if not maybe surpassed a bit of my expectations of what I was looking for. And then we'll dive into what the movie is about, and then why we thought it was so awesome, or even, maybe why we didn't. If there's any kind of critiques or nitpicking that we need to discuss, if that. So yeah, we will definitely get into that for sure. And yeah, so first off, I don't know if you want to give the synopsis of the movie or if you want me to. We didn't discuss that beforehand.
So basically we're back in the Wild West, kind of an alternate. Well, I don't know if it's an alternative, an alternate universe.
We'll throw that out there.
Well, it is fiction. It's based on true people, real life people who did in fact live. Now, I don't know how true to their lives the story is, but it is very much fiction. So you're gonna have to help me with names because
okay.
It's been a minute. You might want to actually do the synopsis now that I think about it.
Okay, I'll jump in here then. So it like I said, it is fiction, and the characters, their names, all of that is real. As for their portrayal in the film, all of that is fictional. So it's not a biopic in the traditional sense. So with that said, there was some controversy that came up even when this movie was announced, such as a whole bunch of people like Zazie Beetz playing Stagecoach Mary, who is a darker skinned woman who is heavy set, and Zazie Beetz is not that.
Yeah.
So, however, the creator of this film, James Samuel, he said that he's not upset by the people who are kind of protesting this or critiquing it for that reason, because first of all, we're talking about these people now, where before we had no idea that these people even existed. Yeah. So that right there, that kind of, for me, that satisfied any critique I had for that purpose of and it's not just that, but that's the main one. Another person, I'm talking just real life character. Where did it go? It's the character that Idris Elba plays. And I'm looking for the cast. Scrolling. Rufus Buck.
Buck. Yes.
Yes. So his real life counterpart is much younger. Like he died at like 20 or 18 or something like that, and was much
Wow.
like. So they're not playing to type or to like the actual characters themselves, and that's across the board. So
Yeah.
yeah, because Rufus Buck, they were like a outlawed Native American gang. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. So, but the fact is that these are actual real life people. So definitely do dive in to learn about each of their history, and
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. It's great. So we're putting that out of the way. So it's the only person I would say that was closest to being a real live person, and not necessarily a biopic, but they're pretty close to it, is Bass Reeves, and that was Delroy Lindo's character. And
Oh, okay.
it's often been cited that he is the inspiration for the Lone Ranger, because he did
Hmm.
a lot of his lawman work by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there
Didn't
you
know
have
that.
it. Right. So the film itself starts out with an 11-year-old Nat Love who's eating dinner with his parents, and we don't know it at the time, or maybe we do, but Rufus Buck comes in and just kind of kills his parents, and then
Mm-hmm.
marks him and like with a cross on his forehead with like a
Mm-hmm.
knife.
Yeah.
Just all cowboy and dastardly like it just
Mm-hmm.
opens like just a traditional Western would. Like I don't know. That's kind of just the mood that I get throughout the whole thing. And then we move to many years later, and Nat Love is alive and well, just kind of just revenging and killing all the folk that came to kill his parents. And
Mm-hmm.
he's also known to be an outlaw who does not rob people. He robs people, but he robs the robbers. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the kind of robber he is. But he travels
Mm-hmm.
around with the gang, Bill Pickett and Quick Draw Tim Beckworth. So they kind of go around and do their thing and run into Mary Fields, or Stagecoach Mary, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going off to go find Rufus Buck, who's then being broken out of jail, which is currently, he's being transported on a train. That train being the Chadwick Boseman train, because that's what it says on the train.
Mm-hmm.
The most famous Easter egg at this point. I don't know what the other
Yeah.
Easter eggs are. I know they said there's a whole bunch of them on there, but I haven't found. Honestly, I haven't rewatched this film yet, and I want to so bad. But there's so many other things playing. And I'm like, I have to find the time. But yeah.
Well, apparently, like my mom watched it, and she said that there was a lot of, especially like in the final like scene at the town that they're in.
mhm.
Apparently, there's like a lot of Easter eggs on the buildings, like the outside of the buildings, like paintings and different advertisements and things. Now, I don't know what those Easter eggs are, and I don't know what the artwork really says. So I think that's one of them, but I
Okay.
haven't researched that part myself.
Yeah, and it probably would have done. I'm speaking for myself. Had I rewatched the film before we decided to talk about it, just so I can really like immerse myself and pause it and like, ooh, I caught that. Or
Mm-hmm.
I think what I needed was a new rock stars breakdown video,
Mm-hmm.
because that helps a great deal. But
Mm-hmm.
either way, throughout this whole film, I just yes, I'm not even like that big of a fan of Western. Like I can count on my hand how many Westerns I actually genuinely like or even love. That being The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly,
Mm-hmm.
Tombstone, and I feel like maybe there's one more, and the fact that I can't remember what it is kind of says that. But anyway, The Harder They Fall is now on that list of how many Westerns I like on one hand. So yeah.
And it's just that one.
And possibly that other one that I can't think of. I want to say maybe it's Unforgiven. It could be.
Mm.
But I'm not sure. I might have to watch it again, but I've never been that huge of a Westerns fan. Definitely my dad, and I know my father-in-law, they both love them. So I'm in good company. Although it's still kind of iffy how they actually felt about this film, because they've both seen it, and I don't know. Now, you said that your mom watched it? Did she like it?
Oh, she loves it. And she's the type, and I guess I get this from her, but she will watch it a few times and like have it on in the background and when she really likes something. So she's been ever since it came out, she's added it to her list of shows and movies that she can just kind of play in the background.
Mm.
And it's interesting because we even like I finally watched it with her and she noticed I was able to point out some stuff that she hadn't even noticed before in all of her many watches. But I guess because I tend to critique movies and stories and stuff a little bit differently than she does. She just watches for the most part. And so,
Mhm.
I'm not really looking for stuff to critique, but it just kind of happens. And so it was, I mean, and I don't sit there and talk through the movie. I'm not a jerk about it, but like, afterwards we'll talk about it or whatever. And there were some things that she just didn't catch the first time around. Like she didn't catch, I mean, it's pretty, well, we haven't really gotten to this part, but like the final scene of the movie, she didn't really catch what was going on. And I'm like, but it's right there. It's so clear. What are you talking about? And
Mm.
so, but yeah, she loved it.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll continue the review real quick, or the breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
Because I left off at the train. They're breaking Rufus Buck off the train or out of
Mm-hmm.
jail, and Trudy, played by the amazing. I just fill in all the blanks of how amazing Regina King is, the Queen, the one, the only. I mean, I love the character, but it's her. It's Regina King, so I'm pretty much gonna love anything she does. But just amazing, as well as Lakeith Stanfield's character Cherokee Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Just villains that you can't really hate. Like you just
Right.
and I don't even want to call them villains. I'll just say antagonists because they're
Yeah. They're just the opposition, but that's about it. I can't say that I mean, but see, their cause is somewhat just too. Their means, are pretty morally gray or
Mhm.
morally wrong, depending on what your own personal morals are. But
Right.
villain, oof, I don't know. Like I don't know.
I mean, because they're darker gray, and then not Rufus, Nat Love, because they're also outlaws. They're like a brighter
Hmm.
gray because they're not
Right,
truly bad. They're not really good either. So.
right. I guess what makes our heroes the heroes is that they are more like they're better than the others, like the opposing team. They're still bad, but they're not as bad as the others. So I guess that's what would, I don't know, make them the heroes of the story.
Hmm. Right. So like, who are you really rooting for, and
Mm-hmm.
who do you really want to win? And then again, once we get to the end, it kind of just like, oh, like how do I feel about this? So, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I mean, because I say all that because I love the breakout and how
Mm-hmm.
like going back to just a villain talk, and I may have mentioned this like many episodes ago when we had our best villains episode, like
Mm-hmm.
our favorite villains. And for me, what makes
Oh
it
yeah,
really
you
good,
did.
yeah, because we had special guests and we all picked our favorite villains. But for me, what makes a really good villain is if you're not afraid to get your hands dirty, like,
Right.
and if you have like a crew, like what makes them want to follow you, if you are like, so if you're the quote unquote the boss of your crew, and
Yeah.
like sure they'll go out and do that work, but are you willing to do that work too, or are you willing to pull the trigger? And he definitely
Right.
is. So
Oh yeah.
for that, I would say he does make a good, in this sense, villain.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're already kind of rephrasing that, it's like we'll say antagonist because are you
Yeah.
really? But yeah, he is that bad. He's a bad guy. So they get him out. They eventually do change his clothes because I'm like, you can't be wearing stripes and looking all criminally like this. So, um, and I gotta say, I really do appreciate the limited use of white folk in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and how
Mm-hmm.
race isn't necessarily like discussed, but it's there, like you know it and you see it. And I'm skipping ahead a little bit when they go to that
the
white.
The bank in the white town.
Yes. Oh, because I had to get to the town first, because like, oh man, and I mean that part they really did hit you over the head, but they did it more for comedy, because I know I cracked up.
Yeah,
like it was the whitest of white towns. Like everything was painted white compared.
Literally.
Compared to the city that Rufus Buck was like funding, or I don't know if he was actually running it. I guess he was running it, but it was colorful.
Yeah.
Like, you see it.
It was colorful. Even like the villagers, townsfolk's attire was very colorful, and I mean it was made of all Black people. And I've literally never, I don't even know if I've seen not just a Western, for sure not a Western, but I know I've never seen just a well, first of all, a whole cast of just Black people, like the main cast of just Black people, but like even in the context of a period piece, because this would be considered a period piece where all of the people are Black, or and just that alone was so crazy in the best way. And to see that the white people were just kind of the background folks, because normally it's the opposite. And it was very clear, like that was very clear up front that it was gonna kind of be set like that. But just so good.
I loved it. There's just so much about this movie that I love, from just the way that they spoke, the way they interacted with each other. I mean, just talking about all the characters and how all of them had their moments.
Everybody had their moment.
Right. Beckworth waiting just for his moment, just to prove he's a quick draw. The quietness and calmness of Cherokee Bill, because there's just,
and smoothness. He's so smooth, so freaking smart too. Just
Now, have you had the chance to like just sit down and listen to the soundtrack, like maybe at work or wherever?
I haven't. It's definitely on my to-do list, because just the soundtrack is amazing, but I've not heard the full thing yet.
Okay. Because they included
such judgment. Okay.
No. I mean, because I was just moving along. That wasn't a judgment. Okay, not this time. Because I mean, hey, at least you watched the movie. Because there's movies I'm like, oh, you gotta see this, and we have. That's why we're talking about it now. But there are like a few like with movie soundtracks, they'll sometimes include like a line of dialogue before it plays a song. So they have a few of those, and one of them is the two of them that I like are two of many quotes from this movie that I enjoy.
Okay.
One of them being the scene where, again, going back to the train breakout, and the conductor gets off the train, and he was like, "You stupid!" And then he doesn't get to finish because Trudy shoots him dead, and then Cherokee Bill's like, he could have said nincompoop, and Cherokee says that, and then Trudy's like, yeah, but we ain't no nincompoop, and like, and then it plays. I think it plays like the theme song for the movie, or right after that, which is awesome. So, like, I have to play both tracks back to back. I can't do it without it. So, I mentioned all that just because I just love like the way that it's written. I love how, like I said, the dialogue, the one-liners, and
so many one-liners.
The character Cuffy. There was a spaces on Twitter where you can do live chats with folks, and people can kind of join in. There are many kind of platforms like that now, and Clarkeisha Kent had hosted one recently about the movie, and they had brought the character Cuffy, and how she or they rather just pretty much plays as a non-binary character, because you may assume maybe it's a male character, but then also a female character. So but it never explicitly said he or her. So that is why I'm like, okay, I see where you're going, because in my head, I just assumed, and
Okay.
came on me for thinking that. Just assumed she was a woman.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was a cis woman playing as what I assumed as a male character, but I
Right.
don't know that they ever like gendered Cuffy in the movie. Now that you say it,
Mm-hmm. I had never thought about it until it was brought up in their discussion. So I'm like, yeah, you're right. Or did actually gender that, and they played it to, well, much to their chagrin, because like Cuffy as a character didn't want to dress up as a woman, but it was needed to pull off the bank heist that they had to later do. Now,
and I guess that's why I thought. I guess that scene in my mind is why it kind of solidified that Cuffy was cis female but wanted to present as male, but I guess that doesn't necessarily mean they're gendered or prefer gender over the other, just the style. But now I'm gonna have to watch it all just for that. Watch the whole movie all over again.
And just for that, and then I was like, oh, I gotta watch it again, because I wasn't listening to the music and how that played into and it's odd how like that like Jamaican flair of music just played in so well to it.
Yeah. There was a lot of different styles in this movie that just worked. Like, I mean, I know that I believe it's the opening song was hip hop or rap, but it had like gunshot and like the ricochet of the bullet as part of the music of of that song. I just thought that was so good. Like, it's so creative, so like wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much, and I feel like the more that we even just kind of scratch, the more that we can sit here and talk about it. And I never finished the synopsis. The whole reason why they went to the bank to rob this bank, Nat Love and Cuffy, is because oh man, I don't even know. I can't quite remember how they ended up getting captured, because they have Mary. They kind of captured her and kind of holding her hostage. So Rufus is making them, or making specifically Nat, rob a bank, which is something he doesn't do. He robs other people that rob. So, right. And he wanted them to rob this white bank, which is why they were in that white town. And I mean, they get away with it. They do what they need to do, and they eventually bring the ransom money to Rufus. However, they decide to also just like, hey, we're gonna shoot it out and have an old fashioned shoot 'em up, and that's pretty much what happens. Beckworth finally gets his chance to have his quick draw match with Cherokee Bill.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping.
Well, yeah, because he's ready to do this whole countdown, and Cherokee does a villainous thing, and he
does.
But also, I'm like, oh man, I like you, but I hate that you did that, and shoots him before he gets finished counting. So
yeah, shoots him before he, and I mean, but it makes his future scenes, because he died, he was killed, thank God.
Right.
But it made it that much sweeter, because he's like, oh, I guess at that point, that's when it's like, oh, the tables have turned. I no longer like you, because that was low down, sir.
It was
real smooth, and I still like you a little bit, but that was low down. And so then he got his, at the end, and died a very dramatic death, and it was beautiful. But I think all of that. Oh, I know all of that was absolutely strategic.
Yeah, I do. That was what, Beckworth that died. Yeah, well, I mean, pretty much a good chunk of the cast.
Yeah. We lost a lot of good people.
Yeah. Bass Reeves made it. Cuffy made it. So the big twist that happened, which even caught me by surprise, which I don't know, I'm not sure if did it catch me by surprise? I'm trying to think now. Yeah, I think it did, because I didn't put together that they were brothers, Rufus and Nat Love. until
that was a twist for me too. I didn't think I wasn't sure then at the end if he was gonna kill him or not. If Nat Love was gonna get him. I wasn't sure.
Well, sure enough.
He did. He did.
So I'm just now reading that the character Cuffy was modeled after a real life person named Kathy Williams. And I'm just going to read this. Kathy Williams was an African-American soldier who enlisted in the United States Army under the pseudonym William Kathy. She was the first Black woman to enlist and the only documented woman to serve in the United States Army posing as a man during the American Wars.
And that was the only way she could serve, is to pose as a man. And honestly, that I didn't think of it until you said it, but when you say she's, Cuffy is based off of a real character, I thought of that, because to this day, like you said, she's the only, Kathy Williams is the only one who has done that successfully. And, so it's just very interesting. And it's funny because I wasn't sure. I never viewed Cuffy as non-binary, but now, like I said, I'm going to have to go back and watch to see if they just never gendered them. But I thought maybe Cuffy was trans, or really trans is how I viewed Cuffy, because it's clear to me that Cuffy is cis female.
Right.
It absolutely did not present as such, did not appreciate being treated like anything other than a male from my perspective. But now, like I said, I do want to go see how, because even in the through the dialogue of other characters who may not have known Cuffy up close and personal, all of the dialogue has to go through the director and all, the script writers and things. And so if they intentionally left out gender specific pronouns, then to me that says it, like non-binary. So I'm just gonna have to go back and catch it, because I didn't even think of that.
Because for me, what I was thinking was the character Cuffy was a woman, but nobody knew, or maybe a few people like Mary knew, but it just wasn't talked about. And then maybe Nat kind of saw through. It was like, oh no, you're a woman, you can do this, or it was just left into our interpretation. And you've got to, because there are some men that have very maybe feminine features, or just that way we could pass as a woman. I don't know, but it was olden times too back then. So it was interesting nonetheless. But yeah, Cuffy survives. Nat Love survives after Rufus basically almost like forces Nat to kill him, because he has to, because he's out for revenge. I mean, this is a revenge film, so he pretty much has to kill Rufus for killing their parents, or his parents.
Yeah.
So
it was his dad. They share the same dad, right?
They share the same dad. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
but basically, the dad was like, "I don't know you, Rufus. I'm deserting you." So, I mean, he was his biological father, but that's about it.
Right. And that was rough, but
I know. I didn't see. I have to say, didn't see it coming. Didn't see that one coming.
I didn't. And I kind of really wondered. I had no idea how this was going to play out, because you like all of not only the characters but the actors, and you can't lose. You're Idris Elba, or Jonathan Majors, who is having a fantastic year, I gotta say. And if you're not watching him now, then please take note, because he's already just, between Lovecraft Country, the fact that he is in the MCU, have you watched Loki? I'm not judging you if you haven't.
Loki? Oh yeah, of course. Jonathan Majors is what's his name? Kang.
Yes, he's Kang, and then in Loki he
Conqueror.
plays the one, the ancient one, or the one that knows all, or the one at the end. I forgot what his name in the series
Yeah,
is.
I thought that Hang was the same person, but I guess not. Oops.
It's
I think
complicated.
he is though. I think he's a version of Kang is what I
Correct. Yeah, he's a version
thought.
of Kang.
Okay.
Yeah. He just goes by a different name, which I can't remember what it is exactly.
You said it. It's something about like the he who knows all or
Right.
something like that. Like he's
Right.
Oz behind the curtain.
If we were
Wizard of
doing
Oz.
if we were doing Loki, I would have all that information pulled up and we would know exactly.
Yeah.
But what we're right now, we're just giving flowers to Jonathan Majors at the moment and his awesomeness. And I'm glad that I started with oh my god, what is that show or the movie? It's slipping. It was like one of the first movies that I think he came out with that I remember seeing him in, and unfortunately I cannot remember. Last Black Man in San Francisco. So, and I want to take a moment here just to give a very, very, very quick review of that movie. And the thing about that is I've seen so many, I'll just go ahead and say it, like independent white movies that don't really seem like they're about anything or just kind of meander through like a character who's trying to kind of figure out his life and what he wants to do with it. And I don't know, but and I say that, and that's not the character Jonathan Majors plays. He plays like the best friend of the guy who's kind of trying to figure out his life. And I'm really not trying to cheapen what the plot of the movie is. It's just, it gave that impression. Like I've seen so many films like this, but from white filmmakers and white characters that are just like, I'm here, I'm doing this thing. What's my life all about?
Right.
Whereas a lot of the black films that we tend to see, it might be about the struggle of being black, or maybe it's some of the black trauma that we see. And that film, or the film that the Last Black Man in San Francisco, is not like that. It's like this meandering character trying to figure out his life, and I wasn't expecting that. I didn't know what to expect, and it really did resonate with me, and it just kind of sat with me. I'm like, wow, I wish we had more movies like this. And this Jonathan Majors guy, he's amazing in it because he takes this turn and he does this one act play at the very end of the movie, and he plays like two characters in it, and it's amazing. It's great.
Oh wow.
So then to see him,
I would love to see that.
I don't know where it's streaming. I'm pretty sure it's streaming somewhere, but definitely check that out. And then I went to go see him in Spike Lee's The Five Bloods. So he's in that with Delroy Lindo and the late Chadwick Boseman. So definitely see that, because that's another kind of different kind of black film, just veterans out there in the jungles treasure hunting. So interesting, fun. And of course, like I said, Lovecraft Country and Loki. So Jonathan Majors blowing up, doing big things. Keep a great, huge eye on him. And I really hope James Samuel does follow this up with maybe another Western, maybe with these characters. Or I'm just really interested to see what else he does, because this movie was great. He co-wrote it, he directed it, he was the like musical supervisor of it. He is on the album,
of course.
Because I mean that's what he does. Is he? Yeah, and I think he is the musician Steele. I think he's his brother. I think
the musician is his name Steele. Seal. Oh, yeah. I was like, Seal is his name, but okay.
Yeah, and I just confirmed that it is his brother. So
that's neat.
So yeah, and this also is produced by Jay-Z, so that is why he is also either on the soundtrack. Yeah, but I mean, and he was not just a producer; like he was actually on set. Like I listened to their spaces as well. Like they took like several hours where they just kind of was just talking to people who had questions or just wanted to interact with them, and it was really insightful, and it was awesome that they did that. So if you have not watched The Harder They Fall, we both can strongly recommend checking it out at least once. If it's not for you, then so be it, but eventually we shall both at some point rewatch it and just dive in deeper, and then even dive into the history of who these names, these actual real life people are, because it's great. I love it.
I did too. It was such a fun movie. It was funny. The gore was even, I mean, it's a Western, so there's some shoot 'em up type stuff, but it wasn't something that I couldn't handle, or that, it was too much. The only cringy part that was like, oof, is when Rufus Buck was just beating the tar out of the mayor. Isn't he the mayor of that town?
He was. It's saying he's the sheriff, but
sheriff.
Yeah, Wiley Esco, played by Dean Cole, which I was surprised by because I was expecting some more comic relief because he's a comedian, but he played the role super
He did
straight.
not play. Right, he was a super straight, character. Like, and he did a really great job.
He truly
that was
did.
the only time that just, he really played that role. They all did. They all were phenomenal. But he, that scene where he was just getting the crap beat out of him by hand, by Rufus Buck, it just made me cringe, because I'm like, oh, he's losing teeth. He's gonna kill him. I mean, just beating him, to death. But he didn't, and that was only part that, because I guess it was the most realistic, and it was just kind of like secondhand embarrassment, but secondhand, oof, that hurts. Every hit hurts, But everything else, gore wise, was pretty tolerable for me. So.
Yeah, I will say that is the one thing that did bother Ashley. Like, she kind of checked out a little later. I think that might have been the scene for her that might have did it, because, like you said, that was, if you want to say gore, that would probably be maybe the goriest. If if that, and maybe even the first scene when Nat shoots up one of the guys, out of revenge, and it's just, I mean, they played it extra too, because he shot him and then he would fly air, so I'm like, oh, okay, that's what we're in for.
Right. So it was a good intro scene, and it helped us to understand what we were getting into.
Exactly. And for me, it felt a little Quentin Tarantino-esque, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but just it's another film.
His style.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was all for it. So, I mean, not for violence, but it didn't bother me. I'll put a meaning that way.
Yeah. Agreed.
So yeah, that is The Harder They Fall.
The Endu Podcast.
And that was The Harder They Fall. If you want to hear us talk about Dune, again, go over to the Love Blurts podcast, or just go over to patreon.com. You can hear all of that, and plus so much more. There's a lot of stuff over there. But yeah, go over there. And we hope to hear and see you soon.